Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here, and today, guys, I'm here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle, I'm going to be playing the Vampire Counts, and I'm going to be facing off against the Greenskins. So let's get right into the army composition and have some fun. So in the front line, I really like, traditionally, the hammer and anvil type approach. So essentially, you have the Graveguard with shields, which, again, against Greenskins might not be that useful since the Goblin Archers aren't really going to be targeting your Graveguard anyways, but still, I like the fact that they have higher melee defense, which then kind of gives you that perpetual value from the Claw of Nagash, the healing, and also makes these Cryptors a little bit more durable as a result of their higher melee defense. So again, a front line of Graveguard, they do have an anti-infantry bonus as well, which is actually a real one. So a lot of units, it says it in the tooltip, but they do have a bonus versus infantry of 8. On top of that, 2 groups of Graveguard to deal with Black Orcs. Ideally, the Graveguard, these ones will deal with, Biggins, Savage Orcs, any of those type of units if he does bring them. Aside from that, I do have 2 Skeletons in the flanks to deal with Orc Boar Biggins, those type of things. Because again, if I'm really getting overwhelmed in the flanks, I can simply pull the Blood Knights back and then use the Spears to support them, and it's usually pretty cost effective. On top of that, I do have a pretty nasty Necromancer back here. He just has Raised Dead and Invocation from the Heck. I sometimes like to bring a backup Lord. I was more experimenting with this game. I don't know, in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done it again, but still, if the Red Duke or, someone like that gets shut down, and it can happen. He can get nuked out, or you can make a bad play. It's nice to have a backup Lord with Invocation from the Heck, because vampires are very Lord dependent. Like, if you lose your Lord, it's very tough to come back, because all of their units have pretty, base low leadership. If you look at Cryptors, their leadership's only 57. I mean, that's in line with a lot of, Bretonnian peasants and things like that. Not the peasants per se, but men-at-arms and, units of their ilk. Aside from that, I do have Blood Knights in the Dire Pack, and that's pretty much it for me. So I did decide to go with the Zombie Dragon. I was definitely having some fun, but the Red Duke's ready to party, guys. So I really liked my opponent's army, and this is actually Pharaoh of War who I was playing against. You guys probably saw on the channel about a week ago. I had a game, I believe it was Bretonnia versus Greenskins or something like that, and it was really close and awesome. So he's definitely a very good player. So Crimson Killer's over here, and I actually really like these guys. I guess against Vampire Counts, they're not terrible because they do have and I've been using them more and more, and I shouldn't say they're terrible. They can be really good, and they do have that splash attack. So against a lot of summons and kind of especially against Graveguard and these very dense formations to get through, I can see them being pretty darn good. So excited to see these guys in action, especially when supported by a giant. So these 2 troops are just going to beat the hell out of my front line. These Graveguard are just going to take a beat down right here, so that should be fun. Aside from that, he does have the 8 peak loony, so these are the unbreakable ones. They do have this fun ability called the Loons of the 8 peaks, where they can just chuck a bunch of gobos at you. He's got some goblins in the front line here, additional black orcs. Another giant, he does have Grimgore Ironhide, so he has a ton of armor piercing. So if he's able to deal with my Blood Knights as well as kind of neutralize the Red Duke a little bit, he's really going to probably overwhelm my front line. The one thing that will really shine here are the Cryptors. Aside from that, he does have Durusty Heirs, and I think that's pretty much it for his main infantry corps. Aside from that, he does have 2 groups of Orc Boarboy Biggins and a Goblin Big Boss, which I really like, because what you can then do is use the Goblin Big Boss, just charge it into these troops, break their charge, and then countercharge with your Orc Biggins. So pretty much the one thing I really have to watch out for this game is a Foot of Gork, and you can see this Orc Shaman is lurking very ominously in the forest over here. So definitely, I didn't see him. I wasn't expecting it. I just thought he didn't bring a caster. So I was definitely just feeling a little bit arrogant here, which can happen when you're playing the Vampire Counts. So right now, we're just going to charge in here on the front line, and we're going to get a nice little charge here with the Blood Knights. So we actually get an advantageous situation. We get the charge. His troops are on the run, so we're going to do a ton of shock damage initially. He does try to intercept with his Goblin Big Boss, but it was a little bit too late. We also do get a zombie summon right on top of those guys. So guys, as far as that goes topically, that is probably the best case scenario that could have happened against those guys. These Orc Boars are going to start taking massive casualties, and they'll probably honestly rout off here almost instantly. So you can see the Red Duke comes in knowing that it's a pretty safe situation, and the Orc Shaman though is lurking. So I then took my attention over to the front line and was not paying attention. So Pharaoh of War here definitely going to make Gork proud, and guys, this is how you beat Vampire Counts. You just stomp them out. So this Foot of Gork is just absolutely devastating. I believe it was overcasted, and you can see my Blood Knights pretty much just eradicated from the battlefield. Though I still did kill these Orc Boars, he still has a full health group here. I do retaliate with an Invocation from the Heck, but still I took so much damage. That's going to be incredibly difficult to come back from. That's pretty much backbreaking, because that's a ton of resources. And now he's in a pretty good situation with his cav here, though I do get another zombie summon, but still, these guys are crumbling. They're down to about 20 models, and of course my Dire Pack just got completely destroyed by those guys. So the fight's going pretty well for me over here. I still should win it, but yeah, a lot of resources lost, and he only lost this one group. These guys are continuing to fight, but it may come out to be relatively equivocal. But again, I did also have to invest Winds of Magic, so that's something else to take into account. So in the front line, it's a pretty pitched fight. You can see the Black Orcs are definitely laying the smackdown on my Graveguard here, and you know, I think he's winning for the most part. Though these Cryptors are over here fighting Black Orcs as well, this Giant is laying a pretty big beatdown on these guys as well. The Invocation, not the Invocation, heck, but the Claw of Nagash is in a great position because it's draining the Black Orc, it's draining the Giant, and you know, you kind of just want to rotate it up and down the line here as much as you can. Over here, he does have some Goblins fighting against Graveguard, which isn't going to be a great situation because they aren't the Armor Sundering variant. You can see that guy going flying across the screen. But you know, guys, I think kind of the meta has really developed in terms of countering the vampire counts. Giants seem to be so good against them because your large units or your anti-large units like Blood Knights and Skeleton Spears are very hard to get on them, and especially if you saturate them with a lot of Greenskin infantry. So over here you can see that the Crimson Killers are going to come in, and guys, this is actually a pretty good situation because the Sternsmen are very hard to kill. So using these guys, they're going to be able to cut through these guys pretty efficiently. I do summon some zombies to try and mitigate the threat of them, but still, these guys do have that splash damage, which, you know, at the end of the day is going to be pretty good at shutting down the zombies. So the zombies you can see are just taking massive casualties, and I do scan the Skeleton Spears after that Giant right there. So over here on the far side, I was able to push off the Orc Boars, but still, he does have a healthy group here as Orc Shaman is lurking somewhere in the woods. I love how he's just hiding it back here. That's so much fun. And it looks like the Red Duke is going to try and finish off these Boars here, so we get a little bit of a charge here. So thankfully for him, his troops were charging, and I probably will take some casualties on the charge, though the Blood Knights still will come out ahead here because, again, they're heavily armored, you know, have a big anti-large bonus. Granted, the Orc Boars, I think they do have a natural anti-large, so let's see what it is. So they actually have a bonus first large of 12, and the Blood Knights have a bonus first large of 22, so a pretty substantial difference, but still, I do use another Invocation of Nehek, and I have been having to use it over here. That's a lot of Winds of Magic that I wasn't using in the front line, and you can actually see the Giants are doing really good. Like, the Giants are just cleaning up shop on my Cryptors, and the Black Orcs are just beating down my my Graveguard here. So very, very well played here. I feel like I needed some more fodder, but I do have the Claw of Nagash, which is in pretty good shape. It's kind of poking at the back of the Giant and draining a lot of his troops here. It was, you know, at the end of the day, a pretty atrocious trade. You can see this Goblin Big Boss is low. He has the Giant, you know, Grimgore, and it's 8 peak loonies, but aside from that, not too much on this flank. But over here, this is where it's getting pretty wild. This Giant is just stomping the yard, and look at the Crimson Killers. They're up to 219 kills now. I know a lot of those were against zombies, but still, a lot of them weren't. Like, the Sternsmen are you know, pretty much just having to flee right now because I wanted to pull everything together and form a bit of a Death Star because this situation was not working out. He gets another great Foot of Gork, and that, guys, that was like just devastating. He took out so many of my Graveguard, so many of my troops. So definitely doing very, very good Gork action right now, but I do get the Red Duke in here. I get an excellent charge here. I use the Red Fury to give him a charge bonus, Vigor, Armor Piercing, and I do knock that Giant over, but that Foot of Gork just destroyed my whole formation over here. So now I'm in a really precarious situation. I have two Giants that are in somewhat good health, and the Crimson Killers, more importantly, are coming in hot. They got 39 models still, which may not seem like a lot, but for a fact, a group that starts, you know, with a relatively low model count, that's a lot. And they have 237 kills. I don't care if that's against zombies, guys. That's a lot of work. And he does somehow have his missile units still online. So Durestiers came back. I did summon some zombies initially, but my mobile forces were just hurt so badly by that freaking Foot of Gork that I was able to kind of, you know, eventually get through and, you know, finish off his Orc Boy Biggins. But had that Foot of Gork been avoided and had I been paying attention to it, it would have been a very different circumstances. I would have been able to chase more units down, but man, very well played by my opponent with this Foot of Gork placement. So over here you can see the Red Duke and the Mortis Engine are trying to clean up these Crimson Killers here because, again, these guys are going to do devastating damage to the remnants of my troops, but really, I don't have much good stuff left. I have like some Graveguard over here. It looks like I have a group here. The Sternsmen, 51 models, 26 on those Graveguard, but their leadership is incredibly low. It's 31 and 10 respectively, and they are definitely going down and dirty. And unfortunately, my Necromancer did get caught out a little bit. If we look in here, he's kind of in the mix, and if this Giant decides to turn around and club this Necromancer, oh, and it looks like Dad sees him. He's coming in pretty hard, but I do get that Mortis Engine. I'm trying to cycle charge this Giant as much as I can, but every time I come in, the Giant, you know, it's not going to get knocked over that easily. And look at that, the Shaman actually gets a really good missile attack. I love how he's just hiding here because he's hidden. So like, otherwise I would be able to like snipe him if I should have been more cognizant at the end of the day and maybe flown the Red Duke over there and looked, but I was so focused on what was going on in here. I really wanted to finish off this Giant. And you can see my Necromancer is having to scurry away right now. So if we take an overhead view of everything, let's go ahead and just see what's going on. So he has a Giant over here who's shaken, but still, you know, he still has 300 HP, I guess, which isn't a lot. And aside from that, he does have his Grimgore Ironhide. And guys, Grimgore is really tough to kill. Like, even if I charge in and cycle charge with the Red Duke, sometimes Grimgore will get like a bit of a counterattack. And 1 or 2 counterattacks will be enough to send this Red Duke kind of, you know, plummeting from the skies or the ground, wherever he's landed at the moment. So he only has 1400 HP. He's approaching his healing cap. He's not quite at it, but I'm pretty much out of Winds of Magic. I had to use so many invocations of Nehek to keep my stuff alive, and now this giant is just bullying me. You can see it's getting the stand your ground, and you know, Grimgor is fighting toe to toe. There's still some Crimson killers in here who have 297 kills. So you know, again, most of those against zombies, but still a lot of those were against Graveguard and other high value units. So very, very wild fight. And you can see I actually thought that giant was gone, and it's just coming in to stomp the yard. So it's going to club that Necromancer. He takes a huge beating right there. And also, you know, I didn't react quick enough, and I think that giant is able to push him off pretty hard there, and he is crumbling with 73 HP. So I immediately try and intercept him to save my Necromancer and, you know, push this guy off the battlefield. But I think giants are immune to psychology, as they do cause terror. But thankfully that Mortis Engine is able to kill that giant and put him down. But unfortunately, you can see the Red Duke gets really, really close to dying because the Rusty Arrows did come back. They're able to, you know, sunder his armor, take him down, bring him down to 358 HP, and his leadership is negative, so he is taking crumbling damage as well. So right now, I just have a few Sternsmen, Skeleton Spears, some other units over here fighting, and also those darn Rusty Arrows just proving to be huge MVPs. And I was a little bit scared to land because I then did notice that, I didn't notice, but I knew at that point after the last missile attack that the Shaman was lurking, and I was afraid that I would take another Gaze of Mork and maybe, you know, potentially just kill him. So I was trying to run over here, save up a little bit more for you know, Invocation from Nehek. So aside from that, all I really had fighting was this Claw of Nagash, and I figured I would probably drive the Claw of Nagash over here just to, you know, push these gobos off, because firstly they're going to get drained. They have very low leadership, and this thing hits hard. It has 120 weapon strength, so it's going to ram in here and run some of these guys over, and he's definitely going to send them plummeting off the battlefield here in just a moment with 10 leadership, and it should go negative right now. It's at 0. They're wavering and terrified. So right now he has the giant, but guys, he still has dirty old Grimgor Ironhide over here. So that was a pretty wild situation. So Grimgor and a giant versus a Red Duke who's basically one stroke away from death, and a Claw of Nagash, the Mortis Engine. So I wanted to like start cycle charging it, but every time I came in, you know, that's another chance for it to get hit. And you can see another missile attack, exactly what I was trying to avoid. So I do a little bit of Matrix action, and I'm actually able to dodge that because I was watching the forest over there. I love this forest orc shaman just trolling me this entire game. So very well played by my opponent with that. I really like that tactic there. So over here, the giant still though in great shape, and I didn't really know how I was going to get through that much HP. Granted, I could just like kite into oblivion and just kite and run. The giant does have, how much is his move speed? Let's see. So it's right now it's 29. The Claw of Nagash is 50. So theoretically on paper, I think I could have just ran circles around it and just kind of sat here with my Lord and never taken a chance. And I think I would have eventually been able to pull it out, but I really wanted to try and seal the deal here. So I continue to like pull back in and try and harass a little bit, but we're going to fast forward because it's a little bit atrocious. So I park the Red Duke over the Claw of Nagash and trying to heal, but the damn Rusty Arrows, I thought I'd gotten rid of them. I thought they shattered, but they did not. So the Red Duke is actually taking fire again. His leadership's down to 13, but he's going to dive in here with the Zombie Dragon and definitely feast on some of these gobos. Man, he looks really cool. But I honestly have been really enjoying Manfred lately. This game was actually casted about 2 weeks ago, or played before I started using Manfred a lot. But of course, Red Duke's still a good choice, but I think, you know, Spirit Leech would have been pretty nice here. So the Red Duke definitely, you know, taking a little bit of damage, but finally we shatter those darn gobos. But still, I'm able to summon some zombies here to kind of bog down the dragon. But the Claw of Nagash did take some damage there, so that was a little bit of a trying situation. But I believe it was able to kill Grimgor, so I was able to cycle charge in, and with 120 armor piercing damage, you know, well, again, I don't know what the armor piercing is per se, but I get a good charge on this giant. But you guys see I come in, I take a hit, and he still has a full health shaman, which isn't a pushover combatant. It does have 310 weapon strength, and a single hit on the Red Duke will send this Mortis Engine, you know, from which is already sitting at 38 leadership down to a very, very low amount. So the giant is continuing to just stomp out zombies, all kinds of nasty stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit because it's a little bit of dancing around. So I charge in, and I wanted to isolate this orc shaman. I was really afraid to land the Red Duke, because if this giant moved, and giants are deceivingly fast. Right now it's slowed by the Mortis Engine effect, but, you know, I had to just, you know, pull away and just escape as best I could. So he has some gobos over here who do have silver chevrons, believe it or not, so they're not complete pushovers. But aside from that, it's just literally down like tooth and nail here. So I decided to just charge in here to ram it. And again, I could have just ran into oblivion and just done circles and maybe tried to drain it out, but still, that just, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen. And, you know, even if still, I think the giant might have eventually gotten me, or his orc shaman would have had enough Winds of Magic to blast me again. I don't know what his reserve was, but he definitely won that one, and it was very, very well played. Like, awesome build from Pharaoh War. He played an amazing game, had some like godly foot of Gorks, and definitely pulled that one out when it was looking pretty grim at some points, especially when the Orc Boars got captured. So I really like the build. Day Peak Loonies, that would be one I might reconsider. Like, I might have gone with like the Armor Sundering variant, but aside from that, the Crimson Killers, look at that, 297 kills. Now, I don't care if it's zombies, that is awesome. You know, I think the giants are really good because giants, like when you're playing Chaos versus Vampire counts, pretty much the only way I've had success beating them is using giants, and they seem to be really strong because you can saturate your kind of a lower tier front line. I wouldn't call Black Orcs lower tier, but anything you have in the front line, you can saturate with the giants, and then giants just beat the hell out of Graveguard, which is pretty much what all, you know, Vampire counts players bring in the front line. They also do pretty well against Cryptors and can, you know, take them out pretty quickly and kind of can outpace that Invocation from Nehek with that huge 500 plus weapon strength. So very, very well played to Pharaoh War. Look forward forward to seeing you again on ladder for round 3. And hope you guys enjoyed that cast. Have an excellent night and take care.